I was looking for a positive spin yesterday. Couldn't come up with one.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin, and thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Oh boy, the news is a-buzzing today. More takes have entered the chat, as they say, for Spencer's scale of agreement, and a new transfer. A new transfer for men's basketball that will pump the brakes, shall we say. Not all bad, but we'll pump the brakes. So, speaking of pumping the brakes, Oregon's 2026 recruiting efforts did not exactly go according to plan yesterday. And then the 2025 class took a small hit, which is really a 2027 hit. I'll explain that in a moment. But the big news is that five-star Richard Wesley is no longer committed to the Ducks. I don't know why the phrase decommitment or decommitted wasn't being thrown around. He's no longer committed. He has got visits lined up to a variety of schools, including Oregon, by the way. I do not expect this to be a recruitment that Oregon's just completely out on, but it certainly came as a bit of a surprise. Not entirely, but right now he's got visits lined up in the month of June and into August as well to Oregon, Texas, Ohio State, and Texas A&M. So this came 17 days after the video we all saw of Dan Lanning jumping into a pool with Richard Wesley. Maybe he's just out there trying to have some fun. Maybe he's just playing games with people. But this has now shifted Oregon's 2026 recruiting class back to they don't have a commit since February. So right now, Oregon's recruiting does not feel good. My panic meter yesterday, 4.5. It was about a 4.5. Like, boy, not having Wesley stay committed. I'd rather hear what, guys like Tredarian Ball have said. I shut down my recruitment. I'm locked into Oregon. Tristan Phillips, linebacker who came on the show a while back. He was an awesome interview. If you missed it, go check it out. He's not going anywhere either. I would certainly rather have that. Oregon doesn't appear to just be done recruiting Richard Wesley. He was always planning to take other visits, and maybe if you want to take a positive spin of this sort of situation, he wants to go into these visits without being tied down to a school, and he wants to go in more open-minded and assess all of his options. But Oregon's still going to get a chance. And do I think it's strange that he and Dan Lanning made a video together and then he decommitted 17 days later? I do. I find that strange. It's not something I can remember having seen before in my time covering recruiting here on the show, which is several years and many, many dozens of kids at this point. But alas, it's 2025, and this is just the world that we have got. So that wasn't a great piece of news. Wasn't necessarily shocking. And then the other news that came yesterday was Alai Kalani-Uvalu flipped back to BYU. And so he's a member of the 2025 recruiting class, is going to take a 2-year LDS mission. When he committed to Oregon, after flipping to BYU from Oregon, this is, I believe, flip 4 in his recruitment. I lost track, quite frankly, at this point. He looks like a guy that can be Oregon's starting center one day. He could still wind up with the Ducks. We don't really know. He's from the state of Utah originally, and an LDS kid makes sense. He'd want to go to BYU. I don't know all the inner workings of why the flip-flop, the back and forth, the push and pull and tug and all that sort of stuff. Don't really know. You know what I noticed yesterday, though? And I will point this out every day until the national narrative flips in the mind of every college football fan in the world, which are mostly in the United States. But there are some outside. There are some outside the United States, too. I notice that when a kid flips from Oregon to another school, there is no accusation of, oh, it's just NIL. Nike Phil Knight. They just throw those words out there with no actual meaning or reasoning behind it. They just say Nike Phil Knight. BYU's heavily committed to NIL. Where's the slander? Where's the negative perception of BYU's program? I notice it isn't there. I think it was Ari Wasserman recently was fighting the good fight on Twitter not long ago, pointing out that Oregon takes more NIL slander than most other schools in the country. He's 100% right. I've pointed this out for a long time. The Nike Phil Knight thing is the lowest hanging fruit for college football fans. But when kids flip away from Oregon, nobody else has big NIL dollars. That might have been what's going on here. I don't know. This is me speculating. Want to make that very clear. A kid who has flipped or committed to one school, flipped to another school, flipped back to the original school, then flipped back to the original school. Yeah, he could just be fielding offers saying, they offered me this amount. All right, well, we'll offer you this amount. Oh, okay. Hey, we'll offer you this. It could have happened. Could have happened. I have no idea if it did. But if that was on your mind as it was on mine, yes, that is entirely possible. Yes, I know for a fact that does happen with recruits. No, I do not know that it happened for a fact with Eli Kalani-Uvalu. But I want to emphasize what I mentioned earlier, which is my panic meter for Oregon recruiting is at a 4.5. Because we're about to enter the danger zone of sorts, if you want to call it that. Like, if Oregon is going to get another top 10 class, which is, for me, every year, the offseason expectation is a top 10 recruiting class, the in-season expectation in the 12 and soon to be 16 team format, which is gross. Have a top 10 class, make the playoff. Every year. Those are the baseline standards of success. So there are still plenty of other big names Oregon is after. I can't see them missing them all. I was definitely disappointed. They missed both Jared Curtis and Jackson Cantwell, who were the top players at their positions, quarterback and offensive tackle respectively. They went to Georgia and Miami, not exactly a couple of slouch programs with guys that don't know how to recruit. And oddly enough, of course, those programs have different ties to Oregon, landing coached under Kirby Smart at Georgia, and Mario Cristobal was, of course, Oregon's head coach once upon a time. So there are still plenty of names. Oregon's visitor lineup for the summer and the players that they're going to be going after can still get this class. Don't think they can get to the top 5, but they can get solidly inside the top 10. And that's not a bad place to be. But it definitely feels... It doesn't feel great. I'm not going to sit here and gaslight you into, oh, everything's totally fine. Like, no. The last couple months, I can't imagine if you got a member of the coaching staff to speak with full candidness, or if you got them to speak candidly, I don't think they'd say, yeah, we never expected to land any of those guys. We were fully prepared to mess on all of them. Like, no. They went out and got them committed for a reason. They went out and were part of the recruitment for a reason. Like, they wanted to get some of them. They know they can't get all of them. Yet that should never be the expectation. Certainly, it has not been a good couple of months on the recruiting trail. The summer months, though, particularly June, because now there's a dead period in July, so not as much is going to be happening around that time from a visit standpoint. I think kids could still commit during the month of July. Decorian Moore, of course, committed last year on the 4th of July. June should be a month, if this recruiting class is going to wind up where we all expect it to be. June should be a red hot month for the Ducks. They have got a lot of visits lined up. You've got Messiah Hampton, a 4-star receiver, committing on June 13th. That's a name to watch out for. Oregon looks to be in a good position. Ryder Lyons, we don't know, 5-star quarterback. That's a name to watch for. You got Emmanuel Iheanacho, who's not committing until August, 5-star offensive tackle. Like, those are just some of the names that Oregon's going to either get on campus, has already had on campus, will get on campus again. Like, there's still a lot to be had. Yes, they have missed some pretty notable prospects. And by the way, Richard Wesley is one of those prospects. When do we get concerned? When should fans get concerned, if at all, with this recruiting class? I will indeed answer that question. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, all of that good stuff. So, as you might have guessed, yes, jam-packed today. First, this episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Do you know which players are going to show up in the biggest moments? Do you know how to track trends throughout the game that could help influence your next bet, help you build your next bet? Yeah, you can do all of that. And if you want to bet college football, you can do that, which you might be a fan of if you're listening to or watching this show. You can bet win totals. Oregon's is 10.5. You can bet conference title odds. They're tied for second with Penn State. Some say I spoke it into existence. I'm just saying what others have told me. I'm not reporting that, of course. All sorts of stuff is over there. And if you're new to FanDuel, it is indeed the perfect time to sign up because you can head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, all sorts of thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, statements of outrage came in after the Richard Wesley decommitment, and then Alai Kalani Uvalu as well. Let me know all of them. Put them in the comments. Hit me up on Twitter. It's a more reliable way. You can become a Locked On Ducks insider. You get priority mailbag access and other perks as well. This question came in. Now that Richard Wesley is gone, when do we have some serious concern for this recruiting class? With a Rider Lions miss after this isn't looking good. I agree. Right now, it is not looking good. Oregon's 24/7 composite ranking is 27th in the country. That is the lowest it has ever reached this late in the cycle that I can remember since Dan Lanning and the staff took over. To answer your question, though, when you get concerned, if Rider Lions and Ponatoski, the 4-star quarterback they offered, both wind up going elsewhere and there's no quarterback in the class, that'd be another sign that it's concerning. But from a date standpoint, when you look at the visit schedule that Oregon has, the commitment dates don't always immediately follow the last visits. I do, as I mentioned earlier, expect June to be a month where things start to heat up. So 27th in the country right now. I'm recording the show on May 27th. How about that? If by June 15th, also known as Nate Bittle Decision Day, talk about that more later on the show. If by June 15th, Oregon isn't back inside the top 20, then you can get concerned. And that probably results in like 2 players. You probably need 2 guys. It could be one. One could switch. If Wesley were to recommit to Oregon somehow by that time, which I've seen crazier things happen, the Ducks would jump back inside the top 20. So if Oregon has less than 2 players commit between now and June 15th, my ears will start to perk up. But like I said, I'm at like a 4.5 on the panic meter. That's not even over 50%. We're not even in panic mode. It's like, okay, I'm prepared to think about the possibility that this could be the lowest ranked recruiting class in Dan Lanning's tenure. But I'm not actually thinking that we're going to get there yet. There's still time. Give Dan Lanning and company a little bit of time there, perhaps. But June 15th, let's say middle of June. If by middle of June, it's still, hovering closer to 30, then we'll have another serious discussion. So, and if Rider Lions were to be a miss, 5-star quarterback, yeah, that would also be a step in that direction towards, okay, it's not great. Not great. Do they need Rider Lions from a position standpoint? Not necessarily. But from a recruiting standpoint, yeah, you'd like to find the momentum. You'd like to get a win there. So let me know all your thoughts and comments, questions about that stuff. Let's get back to Spencer's scale of agreement. I'm loving this segment. I'm loving the takes you guys are coming up with here. This one from, I think it's Philly Rothstein. I don't know. Moore, Poncho, and Sadiq all come back for the 2026 season, no matter their stats or draft position, unless Oregon wins the Natty in 2025. That'd be, I presume, Dante Moore at quarterback, Poncho, starting center, Kenyon Sadiq, number 1 tight end, who could be a first-round pick. They all come back. You didn't put Mateo in there, so Unless Oregon, if Oregon wins the national championship in 2025, that'd be pretty awesome. Yeah, you will see guys capitalize on that momentum and go to the NFL draft. All three of those guys coming back, 6. I will put that at a 6. I'm really confident Dante Moore comes back. I'd be more confident Poncho's back for a 4th year than Sadiq, because I think his profile could really explode this year. But he just watched Terrence Ferguson, who could have left. Remember, T-Ferg could have gone to the NFL draft after his 3rd season, came back to help for a national title push. Of course, we know how that ended, but still, I think there is some value, and I hope this is the case for Jackson Shellstad as well, for Oregon basketball. When you are so closely tied to a player, Sadiq has always seen Terrence Ferguson in the room until now. He watched him come back. I bet T-Ferg would tell him, you should go back for a 4th season. I don't think Terrence Ferguson regrets it, just regrets how the season ended, of course. I hope that Shellstad looks at what Peyton Pritchard did and decides, I want to play for 4 years and make myself as NBA ready as possible by the time I go get drafted. So, you know what? I'm going to up that to a 7. I don't think Poncho's flying up NFL draft boards just yet. He could. He was a good center last year. He could take that step forward and be great like Jackson Powers Johnson. But yeah, I'm going to up that to a 7. I'm really confident Dante Moore comes back. Kind of confident Poncho returns. The least confident of those guys, the guys I have the least amount of confidence in to return to be Kenyon Sadiq, because he gets his first crack at being a starting tight end, and he's about to put his physical traits on full display. They don't make guys like him. They just don't. In the spring game, I think we saw dude looks ready. Dude looks ready to take that step. He's a stud. So yeah, I'll go with a 7. And I like the qualifier unless Oregon wins the Natty in 2025, because if they do, yes, if they do that, all 3 are probably gone. And you know what? I wouldn't care. Would not care in the slightest if Oregon were to break that particular glass ceiling for the program. So this question came in. I just got done watching a channel that was predicting the stats for all Big Ten quarterbacks. They predicted less than 2,600 yards passing for Dante Moore and a 20-8 touchdown to interception ratio. I laid into them because Anthony Brown put up better stats his senior year, and the idea that Dante Moore will be less productive playing under Will Stein just pissed me off. That's fandom at its finest right there. Fandom at its absolute finest. So, I talked about the stat prediction for Dante Moore recently on the show. 3,000 yards. I think he gets there this year. Because Oregon will play at least 13 games, maybe 14 if they make the Big Ten championship game again, which is possible with their schedule. I'm not expecting it. It's possible, though, because their schedule works out in an incredibly favorable fashion. The thing that would concern me the most if this prediction were to come true is the 20-8 touchdown interception ratio. I would like to see Dante Moore throw no more than 6 interceptions this year, and I will sing his Heisman praises from here to the high heavens, metaphorically. I cannot sing a single note. I don't. I talk. I can sit here. You guys know this at this point. I talk. I can do that. Singing? No. That thinking that I could sing just because I could talk would be like thinking Clark from the Benchwarmers can pitch. He has to have some kind of arm just because he threw newspapers on his routes all the time. Like, it's just not a thing. Anyway, bringing this back to the discussion. Less than 2,600 yards, only if he gets hurt, quite frankly. The numbers for the last 2 seasons of this offense at Oregon, I think were too good. I love that he was able to sit out a year and watch Dylan Gabriel run it, and he saw from afar, of course, he saw what Bo Nix was able to do. Like, he's a really confident kid. He knows and has spoken, very publicly about, the difficulties he had at UCLA and how he's got to learn from. Like, I think he's fully aware. I don't think he's, coming in with a Shedeur Sanders sort of mindset there. And yeah, I'd be surprised if he has under 2,600. Now that's where Mariota was his first year. That team ran the ball a lot more. I don't think Will Stein is suddenly going to become so run-centric. I did say recently, and I stand by, this is the most likely season for Oregon to have 2,000-yard rushers than any other in the Dan Lanning era, because this will be the least mobile quarterback they've had. So other running backs might get the ball a bit more. And if Noah Whittington stays healthy for a year, it's his 4th year with the Ducks, 5th year of college football, 5th or 6th. I could see him going for 1,000 yards if the running game really pops off. That's dependent upon the offensive line, of course. But yeah, 20 touchdowns. That might be the most objectionable part of all of this. Dante Moore could throw interceptions this year. Wouldn't surprise me. 2,600 yards would be less than I expected, but again, wouldn't totally shock me. If he only throws 20 touchdowns, maybe Oregon's run game would just be that good. But yeah, I'm with you there. So on Spencer's scale of agreement for how angry I'd get watching that take, 8.5. That's a solid 8.5 right there. Keep the takes coming. I love it. I love that Oregon basketball added a new transfer. But, there's still that one elephant hanging over the program right now. By the way, before I talk about Oregon Hoops' latest transfer, do not forget that softball 9:30 Eastern time, I believe his first pitch on ESPN2 against UCLA in their first Women's College World Series since 2018. That's on Thursday. That is on Thursday. It's on Thursday. ESPN2, do not miss it. I certainly will not. But I also was not going to miss and just not discuss that Oregon added a new transfer for Dana Altman and company. It's Miles Stewart, not Sean Stewart, who they brought over from Ohio State, and I think is Supreme Cook Part 2, which I'm here for. That's an important role, the backup energy big, that Frank Kepnong type from a team from the past. But Miles Stewart has now come over, and he played at Howard last year. Averaged 3.5 points, 2.4 rebounds, 1 year of eligibility left. He's 6'7", 202 pounds, efficient from the field, 59%. Not a big shooter, 63% from the line. Not bad. He made 5 starts in 31 games. He is the brother of now Oregon forward Sean Stewart. I think the Ducks athletic department is just pulling a fast one over on all of us at this point. I don't know how else to explain the number of brotherly connections. I know Oregon's not the first athletic department to have brothers on multiple teams. It just feels... I don't have any data to back this up, just a gut feeling. We got to have more brothers consistently. You've got Mekhi Hughes and Naeem Offord now. You've got Justin Herbert to Patrick Herbert, which we never heard about because we were too busy being told 1,500 times that Bo Nix and Tez Johnson are brothers. It's a great story that we will never... I'm convinced we'll never stop hearing about it. The year will be 2029, and broadcast crews will be telling everyone that those two are related, and that Tariq Woolen of the Seahawks ran a 4.29 at the NFL Combine. We'll just never stop hearing those things. Anyway, bringing this back to Stewart, it's not exactly what you'd call an impact transfer. Howard, not a big-time conference, is not playing in a big-time conference. He didn't put up big numbers over there. There's, in fact, no proven Power 4 production that Oregon has brought in via the portal this year. A couple of guys, Des Lindsey and Jamari Phillips, remember those names for this Oregon basketball team next year. One of them is going to have a pretty significant role, and I suspect that'll be Phillips. Lindsey's coming off an injury. We'll see. But one of those guys is going to have to score. I don't know where the points come from right now across the board. But after Miles Goodman had an off-the-field allegation come about, he was no longer a part of the Oregon basketball program. Stewart feels like an easy-to-add replacement. Like, if Miles Stewart is playing a big role for Oregon this year, one of two things has happened that would be bad. Thing number one, catastrophic injuries. Thing number two, maybe it's both. Nate Bittle decides not to return. June 15th is the next deadline. He has to either declare for the NBA draft or return to Oregon. I really hope it's the second one. It needs to be the second one, or I don't know that this Oregon team will find their way to the tournament next year. I mean, they'd just be lacking for size. Sean Stewart, the Ohio State transfer, is 6'8", 6'9", and that's perfectly good and fine. None of those guys, including KJ Evans, are the shot blocker that Nate Bittle is. So, Stewart, I get why they add it. You bring in a guy's brother, so there's some familiarity there, and you needed a depth piece. You needed a body. You got put in a tough spot. It's only for a year. I don't know how much he plays. If Nate Bittle returns, he is the fourth big man. Foul trouble, mop-up duty, I think that's all this is. There's nothing wrong with that. Of course, I've got nothing against the kid, but, the moves that Oregon has made in the portal for Dana Altman and his staff, they leave me with a lot of questions. They leave me with a lot of questions. I was singing the praises of what they did in the offseason last year, and I think they rewarded that praise from me, or lived up to those expectations. They got their highest seed in the NCAA tournament. Yeah, the Arizona game stunk, and Duke was really good, so maybe they would have lost to them anyway, but they had their highest seed in the tournament since they went to the Final Four. This is just not, they were a 7 seed in the first tournament after COVID. They were a 12 seed when they, won in 2019 with Peyton Pritchard, went to the Sweet 16. They were an 11 seed last year when they won the Pac-12 tournament. They went out and they were a 5 seed this year. That team was really good, and they ran into another really good team in Arizona, and they just had no idea how to stop Caleb Love, and they never really did in the years that they played him as a Wildcat. But Bittle has to come back, or I'd expect a pretty sizable step back. So I don't know that there are other options out there at this point. I understand why you bring in a guy like Miles Stewart, but if he's playing a big role, something has gone wrong. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. Until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.